Hello everybody, Shane1288 here with your weekly RuneScape Byte for Tuesday, June 4th, 2019. So why are we doing this on the Tuesday, you might ask? Well, it turns out that this Tuesday is when Jagex decided to release the Weapon Diversity Beta, and that's pretty much the main update of the week, so we're going to have a look at that. So you might be wondering, what exactly is a Weapon Diversity Beta? Well, as the news post in Jagex puts it, weapon diversity is about fixing that weirdness and making every weapon feel different. What if casting water spells left behind a little puddle of water, and what if daggers were so sneaky that they could sometimes hit twice? And this is in general what we're seeing with the weapon diversity beta, improvements to existing classes of weapons that are in-game that just add a little bit extra on top. Now, you have to ask yourselves, why does the game need this, and why should you take an interest in this beta? Well, Jagex doesn't answer these questions on the news post, so let me try and answer them for you. The hidden answer to both of these is that first is that when you have a game and it has more choice, it's ultimately going to be more interesting and therefore more engaging to the player. And this is ultimately a good thing because you're more likely to spend more time tinkering, and RuneScape will ultimately become more special to you. Now, for the second question about why you should take an interest in this, well, you should take an interest in this because every type of combat from Tier 1 all the way to Tier 92, the maximum we have, will be changing with this update. Pretty much that everything is in a God Sword, a Nox item, or a God Wars Dungeon 2 item will have its passives changed and have something added onto it. Now, I might have missed some in this list, but that's the general idea here, is that pretty much everything that's not a special item will have these new passives added onto it. So chances are, if you're using a weapon, it will be changing. Now, you can have a look at the beta to see how you feel about the current weapon set that you use, and it's important to note that this doesn't mean that you should go into the beta world and use the free Tier 92 weapons that they gave you exclusively, because that's not a real representation of how your character works. If you don't have Tier 92s on your real character, you really aren't testing how the beta will impact you and yourself and the way you play the game. Now, a final note on this before we look at some of the big changes that are coming. A beta doesn't ultimately mean that this combat is going into the game straight after the beta ends. If people don't like the beta, it doesn't mean that the content will be scrapped and something else will be brought in entirely. This beta is ultimately going to be used to gain feedback from the player base before making a decision on whether such an update should go in as it is or if it should be tweaked in such a way, and the final decision of this will ultimately be in the hands of Jagex. So let's have a look at some of the changes that this beta brings. Firstly, daggers will have a chance to hit twice with every attack, and if dual wielding, this will apply to both weapons. Scimitars, which we don't really see much anymore of, 5% of damage given will be applied as a damage over time over 7.2 seconds when you land a crit. This will be upgraded to 10% if dual wielding. Now, maces are proving to be very popular in the beta. While you're wielding a mace, 200% of your entire equipped prayer bonus is added to your strength bonus, and while dual wielding maces, this effect would stack to 300% of your prayer bonus. Short bows for range deal more damage when you stand closer to your target, melee distance being a 6% damage boost. If you're using a shield bow, defensive abilities will cost 20% less adrenaline to use. Single-handed crossbows will have a 2% chance when using a basic ability to use that same basic ability again or one tick after. And some interesting changes for the magic spells, but those don't really pop out too much right now. We'll talk more about that on the podcast. The biggest one is for the earth spells. While your target is stunned or bound, you will deal 20% more damage. Now, as a final note for this, if there's any criticism that you have with this beta, please do be constructive. There's nothing more discouraging than flaming feedback in a beta. If you have a legitimate concern, make sure you're civil and constructive. And of course, we'll also have a full analysis of this on this week's RSBANDB update episode, including discussion on which way we think the final decision on this update will go, which are too powerful, and which of these passives could use a little bit of a boost. And of course, as you know, that means I'm back this week, and I'm very much so looking forward to resuming the podcast this week. So let's get some good discussion topics in on the beta or anything else RuneScape related. If you have questions for this week's podcast episode, you can email them to questions@rsbnb.com, leave them on Twitter @rsbnb, or pop them onto our forums at update.rsbnb.com/ask. And you can also join us in-game at Friends Chat's BitsBytes if you want to play with us. And finally, if you found this video at all useful to you, you can like and subscribe. See you this weekend, everyone.